Welcome back, player. This is Chuck
And Casey.
with the Knowledge Through Gaming podcast. Today, you'll be spawning into the dangerous space travel environment of Tharsis. A little bit on this game. They actually had some pretty good videos on Steam. The director is Mike Rausch, and he actually took inspiration from the whale ship Essex, which is a whale ship that was actually sank in the lifeboats. The people inside of them ended up having to resort to cannibalism. So when they were found, they were actually like trying to suck the bone marrow out of one of the dead crewmates.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, and then it also. What's that?
I'd have just been like, screw it, just sink them all. We're not bringing them back. It's a lost cause. No.
Yo, you would have sank the survivors?
Oh God, yeah. You can't bring those people back into a civilized society after they just spent who knows how long eating each other.
Great. Now that's something else I should have looked into. If cannibals can be reformed. Gosh, I already got so much. But yes, besides that, and it also took upon the Apollo 13 mission, which we'll go into the Apollo 13 one. I didn't do the Essex just because it was a whaling ship, maybe some other time. But this was a disaster where they had to use a bunch of different objects to repair their space shuttle to make it back. He actually also took some, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Some inspiration from UFO series, Star Trek, and Space Odyssey. Zach Gage was one of the other ones who worked on it, and he decided to go with a dice game, and that is why it is like Yahtzee. He took inspiration also from D&D, King of Tokyo, which is another dice game who was made by the creator of Magic the Gathering. And he quoted, "Dice are the arbiter of your fate," which for this game makes a lot of sense because they can make or break you essentially.
Oh yeah, gosh darn
it. Then you're on the ship, the Ikitomi. Gosh, you even hear it in the beginning of the game, and I phonetically spelled it out too. On its journey to Mars. Each turn is a week, and there's 10 weeks? I think I looked up, and that's what it was.
I think so. Yeah, I have yet to beat this game. I've been trying it all day
to make it all the way through.
Yeah.
And then during the tutorial, the ship ends up losing its pantry and 2 of its crew members to a meteoroid strike, which you don't see it now in his game, but you actually can turn to cannibalism. We'll go over that here in a minute. And then what is Tharsis? The best way I can find to describe it's a Yahtzee type game where the dice rolls determine if you save parts of your space shuttle or essentially your crew if they got low health. You have to make some huge risks, like him re-rolling again.
RNG is not in your favor in this game.
No, it can take you have to make some major choices. I've lost like crew on the second turn. I don't know how I did it. I ended up losing one of them on the second turn on easy at that. Oh, you got void too. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Then where was I? Dang it! I looked away. Now I lost it. Yep. Then the challenges you face are like he just had void where he lost 2 dice. But the big challenges are like loss of food, loss of health, hull integrity. They'll take different tolls on your crew. Each event roll lowers your dice, so you'll... Since he has a doctor right now, he only has 1 dice, but if he had 2, it would have taken him down to 1 with that last roll. So you can start off with up to 5, and then each roll lowers it by 1 until you get down to 1. And then you'll never go below that.
I think we might actually have a chance.
And pretty much essentially that plays into the disasters. If you have one that requires a roll of 6 or more, and you only have 1 dice, there's not much you can really do because there's no way you can get more than 6. And I mean, even rolling like a 4 to higher usually is a big gamble. Then stress actually becomes an issue. It's on the left side of their character card. As it raises, the crew members are more likely to hurt themselves, the ship. They act worse under the high pressure. Then you also get worse choices in between on the side projects, in between the weekly turns. Which these projects will sometimes give you food. They can increase your hull, lower stress or health, but it also can negatively do the same to another one. Sometimes there's just no good options, no matter what. I've gotten so high with my stress on my characters that they've given me no good options at all.
Ugh.
Then after this, you'll be able to distribute food that will supply your crew members after you do that whole side project. The food gives you dice, and cannibalism will as well. Cannibalism actually starts a few weeks in when your crew decides to do it. Your crew member that you have performed cannibalism actually loses 1 health permanently, and then probably their humanity, as Casey made quite clear earlier. And so,
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's one of the huge things in this game is you have to make that choice. I mean, sometimes you have to decide, do you want 1 dice next turn, or do you want a couple dice? I mean, it really all depends on how many people you have too, if you think you can make it.
We lost more than half our supplies with the module.
Every event you encounter on parts of the ship have negative effects that can be combated with assists, such as that void, which they are lost to the void, the stasis, which freezes them, or injury, which actually causes injury to your player. So for every dice that's rolled, you actually take 1 damage. So I've had a player where I had like 1 health and rolled 3 of the injury dice and ended up getting killed.
And we're dipping into some cannibalism now.
I've been trying to unlock that player because there's 1 player you get for cannibalism, and you have to eat so much meat. Like,
Yeah,
it's
you
200 pieces. Which, I mean, I've played through probably like 50 times, and I haven't even gotten close to 200 yet.
Oh, and whoever participates in the cannibalism, their dice turn red.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was wondering about that one time. I thought it was because they were low on health, and I noticed on your screen that they were nowhere near low on health. And then assists can be earned to stop these from happening. There's actually 1 room in the ship where you can earn assists, that or one of the crew members you actually unlock can get a +2 stasis with their dice roll, such as the doctor has plus health, and there's one that has like plus dice, plus hull. You get those different things that you can choose to put dice to if you don't need them for your deployment. Then if you do not have any assists, you have to make the hard choice between whether or not you want to go ahead with the risk. Sometimes if you have a person with only 1 health, you might not want to go into a room, but then again, other times you might not actually have a chance or a choice in the whole matter.
See if I can get a 2 here. Nope, gosh darn it.
Oh, you're going for the regain dice?
Yeah.
Yeah, then sometimes there just isn't a good option, like what he had with the dice. Sometimes for me, most of the time, they don't play out in my favor, but for that one, you can try to roll again. I was gonna say, yeah, you don't really have anything besides call home. Yep.
A transmission arrived.
And then,
From Earth.
okay, right now we're gonna go into the sponsor real quick. I know it was kind of short, but there wasn't a whole lot of information on the game.
Is this what we're searching
I mean, a lot of it's going to be explained, and a lot of it really just has to be done. It's kind of hard to explain what all choices you have to make. We went over most of it, but it's one of those things where you got to kind of be in it and experience having to make that hard choice. All right, and we'll be right back after the sponsor. Yeah, you eat that meat. I hope I remember to cut that part out later.
I hope you don't.
All right, but we're back from our sponsor. All right, Casey. So, do you know what all living beings have been sacrificed in the name of going into space?
I do not.
It was actually a long list. I knew about the monkeys, chimps, and dogs. They have actually sent cats, mice, rats, rabbits, fruit flies, plants, turtles, insects, spiders, fish, jellyfish, amoebas, cells, seeds, and algae, all to test the different effects on space travel.
Oh, I'm gonna die.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna die.
I figured you were gonna die a few times.
God.
This isn't even a very long episode, and I figured you're gonna have a couple deaths in here. And then some of these were used for, oh yeah, the long distance probability of survival. Some of them would make it back, but unfortunately, such as our first story that's coming up, a lot did not. Even some potential astronauts and cosmonauts, as we will see here shortly, did not make it back. Yeah, they'd actually, some of them, the Russians would actually do survival training for some of their people too, where they'd stick them out in a, like, out in the middle of nowhere and have them survive for a certain amount of period just to get them prepared for space travel and what they might have to overcome once they landed back on Earth. Just because they didn't know where the shuttles would land. It wasn't always guaranteed. So, oh yeah, there was a story about a chimp.
We had prepared for any disaster. For every disaster.
I don't even think I put everything. It's called Gordo, that they had catapulted like 600 miles, and for some reason I thought they had a giant catapult. And so I was like, how did they catapult that thing 600 miles? And then I was like, I'm a moron. They probably fired it with a rocket.
Sounds like something they do on a Robot Chicken sketch.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought of as soon as I realized that. I was like, I'm a huge idiot. There's no way they catapulted that thing. Then the first one, okay, the first one I was going into was on November 3rd, 1957, with a stray dog that the Russians would take for their Sputnik 2 rocket called Laika. And she was a stray dog chosen for the space launch due to they figured strays were a better option, and they ultimately had no plans for her survival. Sad as it is, it does appear that Vladimir, one of the men working on the project, actually took the pup home as something he said was nice for the dog. I guess to give her like a pampered day before the fateful flight. And then yeah, the story does actually get sadder the more I looked into it. Apparently all the noise and the 5 times pressure from the launch scared the dog so bad that her heartbeat ended up tripling and her breath rate actually quadrupled.
Poor pup.
Yeah, I know. And then Laika would end up dying as the heat shield failed, causing the inside of the vessel to reach over 90 degrees, in which, with no water up there, this became a huge issue, and she ended up dying of dehydration. And then, since this was like the Cold War era, Russia had actually originally stated that she survived for several days, but then, like with the collapse of the Soviet Union, records came out, and it showed that she only survived for about an hour and a half after she reached space. Which, the spaceship was actually never designed for re-entry. It only had like enough supplies for like one meal for her, I think, one specially crafted meal. And it actually wouldn't reach the Earth until it orbited about 2,500 times, and then the craft would burn up upon re-entry. They do actually have a Laika statue in Moscow, a memorial for her. I saw that, which I thought was actually pretty neat. And then we're gonna move on. This next is actually the first major tragedy for the human race. This would actually come with Apollo 1 on January 27th, 1967. While performing pre-flight tests for the Apollo 204,
I
astronauts
let my fear get the
Virgil Grissom, Edwards White, and Roger Chaff actually lost their lives as the fire swept through the command module. So they weren't even getting ready to launch yet. Actually, this was one of the pre-test flights for their eventual launch. There was actually a spark in the command module that ignited the pure oxygen, and due to design flaws, the hatch was unable to be opened in time, and the three men would actually lose their lives. And I was thinking about this, just as in like the oil episode, this is like the scariest way to die, especially then, because I'm already afraid of like fire, like that, dying that way, and then you add where you're trapped in a space capsule. That is absolutely horrifying to me.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad.
I couldn't even imagine the terror that would. Like even both sides, like the people outside not being able to open it either, would have been terrifying too for them.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna lose this one even quicker than I lost the last one.
Hey, you've made it farther in normal than I have. I've beat it on easy, but normal, I've never even gotten to the last stage like you did. The second disaster would actually come just 3 months later, on April 23rd of 1967. This was actually for the USSR with the Soyuz mission. This would become the first space flight fatality in human history. Colonel Vladimir Komarov would actually be killed during the return of Soyuz 1 to Earth. The craft was actually still in the experimental stages of development, and the solar panels actually failed to deploy minutes after obtaining orbit. This lack of power, which interfered with the space shuttle's controls, the mission was then abruptly aborted. But upon re-entry, the parachutes then ended up failing to deploy properly. And then Colonel Komarov was unable to escape the crash before it crashed into Russian soil. Which, the article said that, and this is, I took all this from NASA, I actually got all these from NASA. So I'm kind of curious as to if he had like a parachute and could have escaped, because it said he was unable to escape before it hit Russian soil.
Okay.
So I'm kind of curious as to if he had like a manually operated parachute that he could have tried to jump out with, but even then that seems like he'd be going so fast there'd be no possible way. Then yeah, according to NASA, the American astronauts actually sent a telegram to the USSR's National Academy of Sciences stating, "We are very saddened by the loss of Colonel Komarov. We feel comradeship for this test pilot because we have met several of our fellow cosmonauts. Oh, because we have met several of his fellow cosmonauts, and we know that we all involved in pioneering flight." God, I'm gonna have to cut that out. Holy crap. I read over this too. That's the saddest part. "We are all very saddened by the loss of Colonel Komarov. We feel camaraderie for this test pilot because we have met several of his fellow cosmonauts, and we know that we are all involved in pioneering flight efforts that is not without hazard. We particularly want to express our deep sense of sympathy to Miss Komarov, their children, and his fellow cosmonauts." Holy crap. I even took that from their website. It had to have been the grammar in it. But even this showed that even while nations, like the two nations, this was like Cold War era, that even though we were on bad terms then, like that really didn't go over to the space community, I guess, because that was such a major feat on all parties involved. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The next one would actually be the Apollo 13, which would run into an emergency on April 14th, 1970, after numerous other issues. Actually, the crew had been exposed to the German measles, so a few of the main crew actually had, I think it was one of them, had to be grounded, and so they had to take up one of the backup astronauts. The number 2 oxygen tank had been damaged previously, and they had fixed it and put it back into the ship. Oh, yeah, this is Apollo 13. This one isn't even a loss of life. This is part of the inspiration for the game. That's right. This is the one where they had the issues with the air purifying filters. But yeah, on the 3rd day into the flight, oxygen tank number 2 actually exploded and caused tank 1 to fail and start leaking as well. Alarms and signals notified the crew that fuel cells had been lost and that oxygen tanks were rapidly depleting. John Swigert would then come on with his famous line, "Houston, we've had a problem here," which I've always heard as "Houston, we've got a problem." I'm guessing like Hollywood reworded that. All non-essential systems would eventually be shut down by the crew, and they'd move into the landing module just so they could conserve oxygen to make sure they had enough to get back, because they were no longer able to land on the moon. The crew, this is the horrible part, the crew cut down water intake to 1/5 and would only eat rations that contained water. So this ended up causing massive dehydration and weight loss. I guess one of the crew members lost 13 pounds just within those couple of days.
Dang.
Yeah, because they were trying to take in as much water with the rations, but also conserve their water, because they had to make it. It happened once they had gotten into orbit. They had to make it all the way around the moon and back just to be able to come into land. The temperature in the space shuttle would actually drop due to the lack of electricity in systems down to about 38 degrees just before they returned to Earth. Then the major issue that I always remembered as a kid was the removal of the carbon dioxide. The filters in the lunar module had round openings for the canisters, while the command modules used square ones. So since they didn't expect to be so long in the lunar module, they only had like one round one. So when they went to take the command module square ones, they weren't able to place them in the opening. So mission control actually had to come up with a plan through multiple tests on the ground that required the crew to use plastic bags, cardboard, and duct tape to ensure it would fit, and that would actually end up saving the crew's life. And then the crew would eventually make it back to Earth safely. You can actually see a lot of this in like Tharsis, because I mean, pretty much every week in this game, because you always get new issues coming up.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's constant. Like, even 2's hard enough, and when they throw you like 3 at one turn, it is so hard to keep up with it, especially if you fall behind. Oh yeah, and another major thing that I saw too was America hadn't even been watching the space flight, but because it had been going so well in the beginning, and it ended up turning into like a major thing by the end, and everybody was actually interested in it just because of the issue that came up, which is, I mean, a lot like modern times. People are bored with anything that's not something crazy going on. The next major disaster would actually befall the USSR again and the cosmonauts on the Soyuz 11. On June 29th, 1971, it would be the first and only to date loss of human life in space. 3 cosmonauts, Georgy, Vladislav, and Victor. I'm not even going to pronounce their last names because there's no way. I think Volkov is one of them, but the other 2, there's no way.
Ah, crap.
They would actually spend 22 days on board their space station, the Salyut 1, where they were able to exercise and experiment on the effects of prolonged stays in space and what they had on the body. Multiple problems actually arose, including an electrical fire that caused the men to have to hurry up and undock their space shuttle to head back towards Earth. Yeah, you had a lot of events that time. There was pretty much no way.
Yeah, I think I might chunk this down to easy for a moment, and then I might do a game on hard just to see how insane that is.
And then, as they went to re-enter, it appeared everything was going as planned, but communications were eventually lost with the crew.
For every disaster.
So the Russian military
Not all of them at
sent
once.
troops to the landing point, which is in modern-day Kazakhstan, and it was discovered that all 3 cosmonauts had ended up dying in the return. The investigation into the deaths actually showed that all 3 men had suffered from suffocation and that there was no way the rescue teams could have actually saved them. There had been a fault in the ventilation system that caused a valve to open too early when the descent module released from the orbital module. And then this vent caused all the oxygen to leave the shuttle, and they weren't able to close the valve in time, so that's why they suffocated so quickly. Which that reminds me of, you got to the end of the game, right? With that last mission where you have to get people into the command module.
Oh, yeah, and I wasn't able to.
Yeah, that's what this made me think of, that because they had to get in their shuttle to leave, and then this one, to make it to Mars, sometimes you have to choose whether you want people to stay. I have gotten everybody out on easy, but there's some where I only got one person out because everybody else was trying to fight stuff, which sucked a lot, but it ended up having to be done. Because I think I had like pending events that would have destroyed the ship, so I ended up having to beat those in order to get my people out. And then since this was towards the end of the Cold War, Time Magazine actually released an issue, and instead of criticizing the Russians, it actually focused on the sense of loss for everybody, with Richard Nixon sending his sympathies to the Russian people. One American astronaut, Tom Stafford, would actually be one of the pallbearers for the crew's funeral. Again, showing that, I mean, even though we were at the tensions of the Cold War, these were still overlooked in terms of the whole space program for humanity as a whole.
Even on easy.
What happened on easy?
One of my guys died.
Did he?
Yeah, he had like 1 health, and I rolled a 6, which gave him an injury.
Hey, don't feel bad. I lost in that. Like, because this is what, your first week, right?
Yeah.
I think I had one in the first week too. Oh, yep. And then a side note is the first woman to enter space would have been June 18th, 1983. And I kind of have to think that it was kind of chaos with just men up there before. Of course, they're a little more civilized than you and me are. I could imagine with you and me stuck on a space shuttle, nothing would ever get done.
Oh, God, no. It'd be nonstop crap talking.
Yeah, I figured fart in one of the shuttles and be like, Casey, come over here. You gotta finish this experiment. And you just wait for your response afterwards. I figured it'd be a whole bunch of that. We'd never make it to Mars. We'd crash into the moon first.
Oh, yeah, no. At one point, we'd anger the other one, and they'd be like, all right, I'm just taking us both out.
I swear I'll take both of us out. The next major space exploration disaster would actually not happen for almost 15 years. And this one actually gets to be really sad. I remember seeing a lot about this, but it was the Challenger disaster, which would take place on January 28th, 1986. The space shuttle was launched on a very cold day. It was actually 26 degrees out, which would cause some of the O-rings to fail, resulting in a disaster 73 seconds after launch. Contrary to the belief held by many, the shuttle did not explode, which I'm sure it would almost been preferable because instead it was actually torn apart as the O-rings failed coupled with the fuel igniting. The ship then began to separate from its boosters and other sections began falling back to Earth. The cabin would end up making contact with the ground going about 199 miles an hour. All 7 astronauts were believed to be alive until the end, though. It is not known whether they were conscious upon their deaths, as there may not have been enough oxygen in the ship to actually keep them conscious. The disaster seems to be plagued with many myths that I ended up seeing about it, like exploding, that the crew was killed instantly, that it was unavoidable, that there was that was watched live, but apparently during the time cable wasn't like as big as it used to be, and so it was only watched live by a very few people, like a couple schools I think ended up watching it live. And from what I read, it wasn't unavoidable, that NASA had actually known about the O-ring failure issue, and that in even warmer temperatures they had ended up failing with the risk, believing it would have been an issue. And then on top of all this tragedy as it was, the 7 people out of the 7 people dying, Krista McAuliffe was actually a high school teacher that was going to perform Teaching in Space, which was a program that would be broadcast to classrooms as she experimented while in the buoyancy of space. So, I mean, while she was an astronaut, it was also a high school teacher that was going to do a program to teach students, so that had to have been a major blow as well.
That is terrible.
Yeah, and this relates to the game because, especially like the hull integrity, if you lose the hull integrity, you can actually see the ship start to separate. Which, wow, you have a lot of cannibals meat. You are
I have a
terrible.
lot of. Well, I had a guy die, so I have a lot of meat.
Yeah, you definitely. Jeez, you're still 6 weeks out. But yeah, like even that pantry that you have there, that exploded. If you lose all your hull, you end up exploding. There's just so much that can go wrong in this game. And I mean, even though it's just a game, that does go over a lot to real life because I can't imagine that going into space would be safe at all. I would not want to because that's way too much being trapped. Like you have nowhere to go if something goes sideways.
Oh yeah, no, God, no. Space is terrifying.
Like yeah, I mean, you're just trapped there. If there's a fire, there's nowhere to go. If there's a hull leak, I mean, unless you seal off other places, there's nowhere really to go. It's just a whole lot of. You gotta hope everything goes absolutely perfect, otherwise you're not gonna make it. And then the last disaster that we'll talk about actually happened to Space Shuttle Columbia on February 1st, 2003. During the launch, part of the insulating foam actually had broken off from one of the fuel tanks and pierced the left wing of the ship. Apparently, NASA saw this and knew it happened, but did not inform the crew, as they knew there was nothing that they could do. And it appears that like stuff like this had happened in other space shuttle programs as well, like where stuff had come loose and never actually caused anything. This was left between telling the crew of their potential doom upon return or not telling them, having a successful landing, that or having them stay in space till their air supplies were exhausted. So on that, I can see where NASA wouldn't have told them. I mean, there's really no good option there, no matter how you do it. I mean, in all honesty, I'd rather not know if something bad is going to happen. At least that way it didn't weigh on your mind the entire time.
Ah, that sucks.
Oh, you. Oh, she died.
Another person died.
Yeah, that's not going well for you.
Now I'm down to 2 people.
Upon re-entry, the digesters would actually rip through the pierced wing of the Space Shuttle Columbia, causing it to
I'm dead.
detach from the rest of the shuttle. What happened?
I died.
Did you? Oh, yeah, because you did.
Too much damage to the ship.
Hey, at least you made it farther that time. Even on easy, this game is insane.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I lost a person in the second turn.
Yeah, don't worry. I've had that happen even on easy too. I lost 2 within like the first couple of turns, and then was destroyed way before you got destroyed. I mean, it's so much luck of the dice.
Oh, absolutely.
We had prepared for any disaster.
And then, yep, after the wing ended up detaching, the crew would attempt to stabilize and control the shuttle to no avail as the shuttle would begin to spin, which I can just imagine was frantic chaos or horrible. Oh yeah, and then I looked at a New York Times report where it would have been a horrific last few moments, especially if they were conscious. If they were had become unconscious, I'm sure it would have been terrible, but they had said that they become asphyxiated due to the loss of cabin pressure, and then they were injured by their own helmets and restraints while falling towards the earth. So that sounded horrible. And then the temperature would get so high, roughly only 40% of the space shuttle would actually be found near the Texas crash area. And then I think I just have one thing left that I left.
Moods are turning sour.
Left that I wanted to go over, which is the danger of meteoroids, especially during the beginning tutorial. You see those meteoroids. Stupid. I was like, this is fake. They overplayed it. And then I looked into it, and I don't think that's so anymore. The first thing I looked into was the effect of meteoroids on space travel. Asteroids and even particles down to the size of dust are actually a huge hazard that NASA and other agencies do their best to try to track in the solar system. Apparently, NASA tries to track everything that comes into the solar system as long as it's a certain size. Like, once it gets small enough, they actually can't see anything. But they try to track them all because they can take out satellites and stuff, just like a tiny piece.
Oh, jeez.
Yep, larger ones obviously cause damage. They're a risk to a planet and shuttles, but even smaller particles can be just as dangerous. They pose a much larger risk as it's almost impossible to track these particles. Spacesuits were actually created like bulletproof vests, as astronauts would need protection from not only the environment, but tiny particles that can travel up to 42 kilometers per second. Which, in comparison to a bullet, even a slow-traveling like round fired from a firearm, goes 267 miles per hour. And then that, like a faster rifle, can actually shoot up to 2,800 miles per hour, which neither of those come even close to the 93 or 94,000 kilometers per hour, which is, yeah, I did that backwards. I forgot to freaking calculate that one. But the faster bullet's 4,500 miles, or 4,500 kilometers per hour, compared to the tiny particle was 94,000 kilometers, which is insanely fast. I didn't know objects actually moved that fast in space.
It is interesting.
While they may protect the occupant from many dangers, they could eventually step into a object that would eventually take them out, like no matter what gear they had on. And then this is due to the lack of air resistance in space, as air resistance slows down objects on Earth, but that's not so in space, so stuff essentially just keeps traveling and faster. That once it starts moving, it doesn't ever have to slow down for anything, especially when objects collide and stuff like that. There have actually been multiple satellites that have been damaged just by dust clouds, which they go through, that will damage like portions of the satellite, causing them to shut down or altering their trajectory, sending them like back into the Earth and stuff. And that's essentially all I got. That was all the research. There wasn't I mean, there was a lot, but for disaster-wise, that was about it for the major ones. At least it caused like death because this one we had so much death in this one where you lose two of the crew right away. Plus, you can voluntarily kill them to eat them. You can. There's just so much going on in this game. It really didn't have a whole lot to do with like space travel itself. I think this one was more of like a survival, like a luck survival game, pretty much.
Oh yeah.
So what do you think of it overall playing?
Oh, it is an absolute hectic pain in the arse.
It's absolute chaos. Like, there's some games where you'll roll like nothing but sixes, and there's others where you'll roll nothing but like only the dice that cause you injury. And it's so frustrating just because you never really know what's gonna happen. And like no two games go the same. This one would have been a really good multiplayer game, I feel. It would have been slow, but I'm pretty sure that would have been a good game.
Oh yeah.
Having to try to survive and then...
Oh, this were you and me out there, like, we'd eat each other for sure. Like,
Oh yeah,
it would eventually turn into us hunting each other throughout the ship while mocking each other.
that's why we got to get that survival game, the one where you're up in like the Arctic and you have to try to survive against each other and kill each other off at the same time. Because I know that would be absolute chaos for us to play. But yeah, other than that, I thought it was a really good game. It's hard, very frustrating. I sat for hours playing it. And one night I think I spent like 6 hours playing this game just to try to unlock people, and then I kept dying. Like, I spent all that time and I did not make it once, even on easy.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, because I kept, like, I just had terrible rolls of the dice. Ooh, you got 3 5s. See, that's what I'm talking about, man. Sometimes you get those crazy luck rolls like that, and other times you don't get jack.
And other times you get freaking void.
Yeah. Void, injury. Injury is the one that usually does me in. Yeah, but that's pretty much everything. The game was good overall. Definitely has an interesting take on it, especially with the dice. It's more pretty much luck than anything. There's no real skill involved. It's fun to play though. I definitely enjoyed it. Never really played anything like it, and it definitely beats Yahtzee. Yahtzee's boring, but this you actually have to make choices and hope you make the right ones.
Oh yeah,
Right now, you are so screwed.
I am boned.
You are so boned. I can't believe it either. Yes. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, even on easy, these are so hard.
Oh yeah.
It leads to so much.
Ah.
Oh my, of course a 4. You won't be able to get that other one anyways. It's 25. Holy
Yeah,
crap.
no.
It's -2 health. Yeah, but anyways, if anybody listening is interested, you can always send stuff to our Facebook page, the Knowledge Through Gaming Facebook page, if you have any suggestions, if you want to like suggest any games or anything like that. If we missed anything, that or if you feel like there's anything you'd like other people to know, so we can put in a future podcast episode when we do like an update, because we eventually want to do the other like space games and do updates, and then probably eventually go into like space travel in general. If you go to Anchor, you can send us voice messages that we can actually play, that or you can email the knowledgethroughgaming@gmail.com, and then we can get information there as well, whichever one's easiest for you.
Yeah, I'm dead. So dead.
And then if you enjoyed the videos, Or if you like videos more, you can always go to YouTube. That are the other way around. If you're watching on YouTube right now and rather just have the more edited version, just because it takes so long to edit that I only do the podcast, because the YouTube video, it just, because we want to add the game audio in there as well for the YouTube, and then it's about like, the other night it took me about 5 hours to edit the audio, so it'd be about a 10-hour process, and just between, you know, working 3 jobs, I really don't have the time for that. But I mean, if eventually we get to the point where I can, I would be more than happy to, but as of right now, it's just not feasible. But the podcast is more edited, but I like the YouTube video as you get the game audio as well. And that's pretty much everything. Next week it will either be, or the next episode we have will either be dragons or cults. Dragons, we're going with the game Horde, and cults, we are going Far Cry 5, right? You said?
Yeah. All right. Before we leave out here, let's see how crazy Hard is. He's got a blood splatter behind us, so that should be, you know, encouraging.
I don't know if I played on Hard or not.
That is not off to a great start.
No, a 1. That is not good at all.
Oh.
You only had 2, but that one was so huge. 27?
I know. That's... Oh. Frack. Alright.
I missed about freaking 1.
I know.
You still have, what, 2 people, right?
One.
1?
She's the last person to go.
You would have been fine if that one guy would have rolled, you know, 8.
I know, that I could have tried and gone up there and take care of that one.
I mean, at least it was -1 dice, and everybody was pretty much already at 1 dice.
Yeah. Oh, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to
Who has a plus dice? A specialist, right?
Yeah, she can roll extra times.
I usually grab that extra person with the assists.
Oh, yeah, I should have brought her. Oh, no! Look at all those ones!
That's horrible.
Wait a minute.
I almost don't even think the game cares right now. I think it's just giving you low numbers.
Yeah.
That was smart, though. Those 3 ones saved you, I mean, a bit. Gave you some time, at least.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, no.
Oh, my goodness.
Right, you're gonna go in there, you're gonna try and get us some food. All I need is another 5. Not gonna get it.
Oh, man, I thought...
Oh, thank God.
Whew.
I can survive the damage I'm about to take. That ain't gonna be a problem.
At least you got 1 food.
Yeah. Give it to the doctor and... Oh, this just look peachy. I gotta take care
2
of
health
that.
to all, -1 food. Oh.
And there goes every single one of my assists. I'm gonna just take care of that, because if I roll again and I don't need her getting injured,
dying.
yeah.
Ah, you almost had that save.
Nope. Alright. Let's see if you can fix this one. That's nice.
Yeah, that's not good. I like how it's an ID 10T error. An idiot error. It's funny. Oh, at least you got that one too.
Alright, Captain.
Holy crap. Yeah, you're kind of doomed no matter what.
Oh. Ah, yep.
Yeah, you don't want to pull that void in there because if you pull a void into the dice thing, it locks the game up. I did that the other night.
Check.
Oh, jeez.
Because I was like, it's going to disappear. I was like, screw it, I'll throw it in there. And I went to throw it in, and yeah, it doesn't work.
Oh, thank God I can start eating people.
One of the only times you thought you'd ever be saying that.
Oh, God.
You got 3. Absolutely no way.
Oh, thank God for the assists, or he'd be dead. Oh,
Well, there's your 5. Oh my goodness. There was like nothing good.
I know. Oh, you suck, game.
Gotta get 6. 3? Oh, you can put those ones in there and then use that repair 3 to 1 module, the duct tape one you got the research.
I'd rather use repair 7
Oh.
and fix the thing.
Well, I mean, it was gonna go either way.
Yeah.
The 3 was gonna do it as well.
Well, they had 4 left.
Yeah, but you would have put that 1 in there, that would have became 3, and then you would use 3.
Oh, yeah.
I can math sometimes, man.
I got bigger things to worry about, alright?
You know what? Maybe this is why I make it farther than you, because I'm awesome like that. Because I'm a super genius. We know who will be steering the ship. It'll be me. You should be allowed.
Any retort I would have to that would be inappropriate.
Good. God, you still survived.
I know.
A transmission.
Oh, nice. I got an achievement. Yeah, I gotta do that one. Save that food.
Oh my god. The 26s are what is screwing you.
Oh, God.
I mean, there's really nothing you can do.
No.
You're super low on health for everybody, plus...
Yeah, we're dead. Like, we are dead.
So done.
Wait. Put some duct tape on it.
Golly gee, you might have saved the ship. I don't know, you just keep getting crap rolls.
Oh, I know. RNG is not on my side here. Oh my god.
2 inches.
Oh god, look at all
The
that.
ship had been fully repaired and you still would have died.
I know.
It just stacked up so fast. And it didn't help you were getting those 26s, so you're getting like 3 and then one was a 26, which...
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Even with 5 dice, you can't take care of that.
Well, no, if you roll all 6s, because that'd be 30.
Oh, do you get 6 dice? I said 5
No, no.
earlier.
5 times 6 is 30.
Oh. See, all right, okay, maybe I can't math sometimes.
Alright, that was Tharsis.